All right, we are recording for this book introduction for, as I clear out some things, Star Trek V: Final Frontier novelization, which is morbid curiosity. Maybe that's a bit much, but I'm curious about how this one's going to go. So with book introductions first, looking at an ebook version, don't have it in print. Does have a dedication, by the way, for George, Dave, Stern, Kathy, especially Irwin and Geraldine. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Flip Wilson was funny is my only defense. Special thanks are due Dr. Carol Williams, an astronomer at the University of South Florida, and George at Simply Computers in Tampa. Okay. But yes, going back to the cover, which is there, although that... Here, let me... No, that's... Hang on, let me see if I can get a brightness level on this that... It looks like that is one nice feature with the Kobo, is that you can just adjust the brightness level by dragging your finger up and down there. But yeah, the saturation is a lot lower in the ebook, which may just be because it's an ebook. But looking at it is, like, just looking at the artwork first, it is interesting. I do think that the saturation up here is so much detail is lost on Shatner's face that I don't actually like that aspect of the cover, but and way too red, far much too red there. I feel that's overdone. But I do kind of like the whole Kirk and Spock, because even though it is a trio, okay, it is a triumvirate. Bones is an equal member of it. He's just typically not the loudest, but it is certainly those three. These two ones everyone thinks about, but we should not be neglecting Bones. But it's still, I like how we've got those two there, how they are together. I almost want to say opposing, but I mean, Kirk and Spock never really oppose. I mean, a little bit in this, but because I have seen the movie. But I do like how it's like we have the Enterprise A up above, so we're seeing that there, because I mean, it's a beautiful ship. It also is neat, the how you've got the V in, not just for Star Trek V, but also in the artwork itself. How you've got the shape there. And then underneath, it all points down to Sybok, I assume, riding on a horse there. Kind of cavalry thing. But it is also interesting to just think about the whole. You have the ship up above, and then this seemingly low-tech just cavalry march below. It is kind of funny, the juxtaposing the two levels of technology there. Yeah, I don't. Let me look at something. Right network. I want to look at, because I would get the cover art. Here, there. Okay, that is also the cover art that I have on my Jellyfin server. So it's right there. Okay. Because I mean, it does make sense for movie cover art, but I am curious if we're going to get some of that juxtaposition between the technologies in the novelization. We do also have down here, maybe I should have said it earlier, but I wanted to come to the cover. I wanted to cover the dedication because that's only in here. I don't have it over there, but we've got a novel by J.M. Dillard. I don't know of any other work by him. I think I have seen the name somewhere, but it may have just been when I was looking up these novelizations. Based on the screenplay by David Lowery. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. Story by William Shatner and Harv Bennett and David Lowery again, which... Hang on just a second. Just need a moment. Okay, that's what I thought. I just grabbed the Star Trek trilogy novelizations, which has an introduction. Harv Bennett, the man behind the movies. So we do have a common thread through them that includes him. I don't recall him being involved with motion picture. The way that introduction was written, it did seem like he was not. It was just at Wrath of Khan and on, but it does still make you wonder. how the hell did he let Star Trek V happen the way it did? And as I said, morbid curiosity. I am curious, will the novelization be better? Because it could be that it was just not a good movie, but the story itself is good. Don't know. It's possible. I must acknowledge that possibility with novelizations. But there's also this, that the last time I watched through the Star Trek movies I have, one thing about Star Trek V that occurred to me, and it's one of those, I shouldn't think as badly of it. That doesn't mean it's good. I'm not saying it's good. What I'm about to tell you is not going to argue that it is good. It's just, it's maybe not as bad as you think. Remember Shatner wrote it. I mean, it's story by William Shatner. These are. I think if you view that as he was writing a story that would let him be with his friends, that would let him be with his family, and have fun with his friends and family, his Star Trek friends and family. I think if you see it in that light, suddenly more of it makes sense. Things like the suggestion of a relationship between Scotty and her, which does feel out of place. I mean, it just does. I mean, that they're friends, yeah, of course, that kind of relationship, but that movie does seem to suggest there's more. I don't doubt that's going to be in the book as well. But there's an element there of, well, it's these two. It's like, why not let them get together? I could see that being in Shatner's mind, that these two characters, they've been around each other for so long, why wouldn't they? Kind of thing. Kirk does his thing. Sulu and Chekhov, maybe it's like, well, they're too young, or they have their own interests. Also, they end up having the joke later on where they're following around the Klingon woman until a Klingon man shows up and it's like, no, I'm her boyfriend. And they immediately turn and leave. Like, you have that there. It's like those two, no, they're not ready for a serious relationship. Scotty would be. Yeah, so, or her. I mean, it's like, I could see it being reasoning kind of like that. And also the whole, and I do hate it. It is wrong, but it makes sense in this context. And that is how I'd put it, is that some of the stuff in the movie, at least, it makes sense in the context of wanting to have fun, wanting to be with your family again like this, your work family here. It makes sense, but I would still be like, I understand it. But we're not making Klingons apologize. That's not what they do. Okay, especially not for apologizing for attacking you. That's not what Klingons do. So, no. Just, I mean, but I do get it. The idea that Shatner would be like, after dealing with Klingons for so long and we finally seem kind of peaceful with them, it's like we're not actively at war, I want an apology. It's like, I can understand that. I understand why you would want that. It's stupid, though. We're not doing it. Chang would never apologize. Oh, man. I'm so much looking forward to that. What? Just the Undiscovered Country novelization. I really am. But, it'll also be interesting, some of the concept of God stuff in this. Because on the one hand, there's a lot of that stuff. I mean, I'm a Catholic, so the idea of just like, oh no, there's an actual physical location we can find God in the universe is like, not how that works. But there's also, I'm sorry, it is still such a good, and it's also kind of that point. What does God need with a starship? That's a very good line, and that is completely appropriate. That's like, well, no, God doesn't need a starship. That's also why the idea of finding him on a planet makes no sense. It's like, he wouldn't be confined there. He doesn't need a starship. So there are some elements of it that are actually pretty good, and I could see the story itself written well and done well. The movie is not. I'm looking forward to the book to see how that is. Okay, so let me look at this again. It says it is 228 pages long. we have a prologue, chapters 1 through 18, an epilogue, then the Mountains of Gaul, 140,005 Vulcan Old Date. I don't know. I do not know. We'll find out some of that. And, one other thing that will also be interesting with reading this is Sybok, in the movie, he does not go around as a traditional Vulcan. In that he is not lacking emotional control, but he is emotional. He will smile, he will laugh, he will be angry, things like that. So it will be interesting to see some of the stuff there. Like, is he a mad Vulcan, or is he a developed Vulcan that he's not a slave to his passions, as I've described before? That's how I think Vulcans are. He's not... Okay, let me try to step back and explain that. Because if you watch especially the videos that I did for Search for Spock, you got a lot of this. My headcanon for how Vulcans work is that they are a deeply emotional and passionate species. And by the way, there is some of the, I think mainly the Star Trek television series, and I'm just trying to think which ones in particular. Do I need to include Voyager? I would be excluding Enterprise from this. Enterprise, I think, did Vulcans very badly, to the point of harming them, but in any case. That Vulcans had those emotions, but because they were so deeply passionate with them, and also so physically strong, that they were basically always in a state of war. That it was with Sivak and the teachings of logic, his teachings on logic, which forms a Vulcan religion, and is a religion, it is, that by doing that, it provided them a way of controlling their emotions such that they could then be productive and actually form a culture that is not based on war, or not based on their own passions. But that over time, this developed a superiority to them, such that this very much is talked about in my Search for Spock stuff, both the written review and also in some of the videos. They're racist. Vulcans, by their nature, by their religion, are racist because they believe themselves to be superior to others, and is born from their obsession with logic, because they need that to control their emotions. If they did not, if they were controlled by their passions, they would destroy so much around them, things that they know should be valued. But, because the way I explain it in those videos, and because this is kind of what I believe, and does align kind of with what is shown in Search for Spock, with Sarek's interaction, with the interactions with Sarek and such, is that they're actually envious of humans. Or that you can see it that way because, while they might see humans as lesser, mainly because your minds aren't as disciplined, but it's also the humans don't need this capability. We are a passionate species, but we are not controlled by our passions, like Vulcans have been in the past. We don't need logic to control ourselves. We just have that innately. And that I see it as the Vulcans, they start thinking of it more as, well, we need that, and that's allowed us to achieve this higher plane, this higher level, this superior level to everyone else, so everyone else is worse than us. They are racist. But in reality, it's like, well, no, what you're doing there is a mechanism so you can have culture and civilization equal to others. So it's like, and there's nothing wrong with this. It would be like, you just have a special diet compared to humans. That and I don't mean, yes, I get the vegetarian is technically a special diet, but I mean, no, they genuinely can only eat certain foods, kind of thing. It is, physiologically, they can only digest certain food. That doesn't make you superior, it makes you different. And yeah, it is interesting to think about things that way, and to realize that it actually really explains a lot of Vulcan behavior. And even in the original series, when you see some of how Spock's behavior goes, not always, because he really gets comfortable around humans, really gets used to them. And I think certainly when we get into Star Trek 6, with logic is only the beginning of wisdom, not the end of that line. I love that line, because it helps. That is part of what helped form my opinion on this, is that Spock realizes exactly that. Logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end. The majority of Vulcans believe it is the end, therefore they believe they are superior, and that leads to their racism. But you see, like, Sarek's behavior in the original series, for the few times you see him there. Crap, now I'm trying to remember if it was more than one time. I know he's in Journey to Babel. Did we see him after that? Maybe we didn't. But even some of the behavior with Amok Time, because it is also, it's like, why keep something that is fundamental? It's like, it is part of your existence, part of your biology. Why would you keep that so secret, especially when you are venturing out into the cosmos and encountering other civilizations, and you're living and working with them? Why would you keep that hidden? But what happens with Pon farr? They lose their control. They start becoming slaves to their passion. They can't acknowledge that. They're trying to eject it. They see that as lowering themselves, no longer being superior. So again, it all makes sense with they're racist. So anyway, that is kind of how I view this. So Sybok is going to be a very interesting Vulcan, because for one thing, he's a pure-blooded Vulcan, unlike Spock, because it is described, at least in the movie, his mother is a Vulcan princess. It will also be interesting to find out what happened to her. Like, did she die? Or, because I could believe this because of how Pon farr is described, how it initially, like, marriages on Vulcan are apparently prearranged, it seems, because it's when they were, like, Spock and what's her name, it was when they were children. Is it possible that Sarek and this Vulcan princess were betrothed to each other as children? Pon farr happened, but that afterwards they separated. Maybe it is they found that union to be illogical, or maybe she did die and then Sarek was ambassador to Earth, found Amanda and fell in love there, and so married her, and then eventually had Spock. It's like that. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we'll get the answers here, so I'm curious about that. But still, Sybok, seeing how he is might be very interesting. Will that challenge or reinforce? Like, might he be the exception that proves my headcanon rule of Vulcans being racist? I don't know. Because, at least for his presentation in the movie, he is not a slave to his passions, but at the same time, he does exhibit emotion. So it will be very interesting. That was a very long-winded way of me getting to that. But I do then wonder if the Mountains of Gaul, if that relates to what that may relate to. Because it seems an odd name. It's like on Vulcan, and the fact it's after an epilogue. I do wonder if this is like the prophecy that Sybok references. Excuse me. Or if it might even be his revelation for what his mission is. Maybe that came to him on the Mountains of Gaul. I don't know. I don't know. It will be interesting to read and get to. So yeah, that has been plenty of me talking. See you next time for the prologue.